Charges against a Utah plastic surgeon are dropped, and he's free to practice medicine. He was accused of throwing away $28,000 in COVID-19 vaccines and writing fraudulent COVID-19 vaccine cards.
Our Mackenzie Diaz spoke with the doctor and a supporter of his to understand where he's coming from. Tell us more, Mackenzie.
Yeah, Dr. Kirk Moore is a plastic surgeon who insists COVID-19 was fake. The CDC says 1.2 million Americans have died from COVID-19, but Dr. Moore is standing by his position, and so is President Trump's Attorney General.
Well, I think COVID was all fake. I think it was just nothing but a lie from the beginning.
That's Dr. Moore over at the Plastic Surgery Institute in Midville, and he's back in his office at ease.
Kind of surreal.
President Trump's Attorney General Pam Bondi dismissed the case against him over the weekend. Moore was accused of fraud, conspiracy, counterfeiting. Prosecutors said he gave kids saline shots instead of COVID-19 vaccines. They also claim he destroyed nearly $28,000 worth of government-provided COVID-19 vaccines and gave out fake vaccination cards.
Do you regret any of what you did?
No, not at all. I did what was right. I did what my patients wanted.
Moore admits he provided real vaccination cards with real lot numbers, but never gave the shots.
They were real cards,
and
they had the real lot numbers on it. I just didn't give them the injection.
But he says he didn't violate the law, the CDC rule.
They accused me of violating the law. There was no law. It was a CDC edict. It's a CDC. Essentially, CDC is an advisory agency only. Okay, they don't have the ability to make laws.
In 2023, federal agents with the warrant searched his office and looked through his phone and the phone of his office manager. Prosecutors built their case and took it to a grand jury.
But it turns out later that the day that they showed up was the day that the charges had been unsealed from the grand jury. And 2 weeks later, so that was rough. That was the 11th. So on the 26th, we had our arraignment downtown in the federal courthouse.
Moore believes public support helped bring the case to an end, thanks to a Utah-based podcast, We Are the People, and the public rallies that followed.
Probably a little over 100 people show up at the courthouse before 8 a.m. on Monday morning. And what did it look like? We had doctors speak. We had several different people in the community speak about Dr. Moore, about the case, and really the whole purpose was to kind of get information out of the community so the community know what was going on in their backyard.
Moore says he doesn't know who reported him, but says he doesn't think it was any one of his patients.
I have no regrets about what it was that I did.
And Moore says he never had the COVID-19 vaccine and he's never given it. He plans to stay in Utah and continue in medicine. Reporting live in the studio, Mackenzie Diaz, ABC4.
Lake City, where people gathered outside the federal courthouse in support of Dr. Kirk Moore. According to the indictment, Moore is accused of destroying hundreds of doses of COVID-19 vaccines, distributing COVID-19 vaccine cards without giving the actual vaccine, and giving saline shots to minors.
A federal grand jury in Salt Lake City returned an indictment back in January of 2023, charging a Utah plastic surgeon, Dr. Kirk Moore, his medical corporation, and 3 co-defendants for allegedly trying to defraud the government and CDC. It states they ran a COVID-19 vaccine scheme out of Plastic Surgery Institute of Utah. One of Dr. Moore's co-defendants, Kristen Anderson, spoke to supporters outside ahead of the trial.
I'm feeling optimistic and grateful for the support, for everybody that's showing up and on behalf of us, and to help fight for our medical freedoms.
Among the speakers were previous patients, House Speaker Mike Schultz, and Dr. Moore's son. Just before heading inside the courthouse, Dr. Moore walked through the crowd.
It just warms my heart to see you guys here. Thank you.
According to the indictment, it says they allegedly disposed of more than 1,900 COVID-19 vaccines, which cost more than $28,000. It says Moore began receiving vaccine doses in October 2021. The documents say Anderson would screen fraudulent vax seekers, then required them to make a $50 donation for each appointment to get a fake vaccination. It says that donation was linked back to the plastic surgery business. The indictment also states that they would administer saline shots to minors, quote, at the request of their parents so that the minor children would think they were actually receiving a COVID-19 vaccine. While people at the rally did not deny those claims, they instead said he saved hundreds of people by not administering the vaccine.
Dr. Kirk Moore faces up to 35 years in prison, and jury selection started on Monday morning. For now, in Salt Lake City, Julia Sandor, Fox 13 News.
Fauci, I don't expect you today to admit that you approved of NIH funding for gain-of-function research in Wuhan, but your repeated denials have worn thin, and a majority of Americans, frankly, don't believe you. Even the NIH now admits that EcoHealth Alliance did perform experiments in Wuhan that created viruses not found in nature that actually did gain in lethality. The facts are clear. The NIH did fund gain-of-function research in Wuhan, despite your protestations. You can deny it all you want, but even the Chinese authors of the paper, in their paper, admit that viruses not found in nature were created, and yes, they gained in infectivity. Your persistent denials, though, are not simply a stain on your reputation, but are a clear and present danger to the country and to the world. As Professor Kevin Esfelt of MIT has written, gain-of-function research looks like a gamble that civilization can't afford to risk. And yet here we are again, with you steadfast in your denials. Why does it matter? Because gain-of-function research with laboratory-created viruses not found in nature could cause a pandemic even worse the next time. We're suffering today from one that has a mortality of approximately 1%. They're experimenting with viruses that have mortalities of between 15 and 50%. Yes, our civilization could be at risk from one of these viruses. Experiments that combine unknown viruses with known pandemic-causing viruses are incredibly risky. Experiments that combine unknown viruses with coronaviruses that have as much as 50% mortality could endanger civilization as we know it. And here you sit, unwilling to accept any responsibility for the current pandemic and unwilling to take any steps to prevent gain-of-function research from possibly unleashing an even more deadly virus. You mislead the public by saying that the published viruses could not be COVID. Well, exactly no one is alleging that. No one is alleging that the published viruses by the Chinese are COVID. What we are saying is that this was risky type of research, gain-of-function research. It was risky to share this with the Chinese, and that COVID may have been created from a not yet revealed virus. We don't anticipate the Chinese are going to reveal the virus if it came from their lab. You know that, but you continue to mislead. You continue to support NIH money going to Wuhan. You continue to say you trust the Chinese scientist. You appear to have learned nothing from this pandemic. Will you today finally take some responsibility for funding gain-of-function research in Wuhan?
Senator, with all due respect, I disagree with so many of the things that you've said. First of all, gain of function is a very nebulous term. We have spent, not us, but outside bodies, a considerable amount of effort to give a more precise definition to the type of research that is of concern that might lead to a dangerous situation. You are aware of that. That is called P3CO.
We're aware that you deleted gain of function from the NIH website.
Well, I can get back to that in a moment if we have time, but let's get back to the operating framework and guide rails of which we operate under. And you have ignored them. The guidelines are very, very clear that you have to be dealing with a pathogen that clearly is shown and very likely to be highly transmissible in an uncontrollable way in humans, and to have a high degree of morbidity and mortality, and that you do experiments to enhance that, hence the word EPPP,
most you people
enhanced
still support
pathogens of
That's crazy.
So when EcoHealth Alliance took the virus as a
tried to
finish and
kill
combined it with
Americans,
WIV1 and
Americans
caused a
tried to
recombinant
kill
virus that
Americans.
doesn't exist in
It's
nature,
some
and it
man-made
made mice
bullshit,
sicker,
man.
mice that had humanized
Crazy.
cells.
And these
You're
niggas
saying
out
that
here
that's
still
not
defending
gain-of-function
these motherfuckers,
research.
man.
according to the framework and guidelines.
So what you're doing is defining away gain of function.
No.
You're simply saying
These motherfuckers tried to kill Americans. And you got some of these motherfuckers still out here defending these motherfuckers, man. These motherfuckers tried to kill you. People, they tried to kill you. And most of your peoples. And y'all still defending this fuck shit. Coming from the left. I don't understand some of you niggas, man. I'm talking to niggas right now. Niggas was sold out by other niggas. Once again, that did no researching on this shit. And was quick to have you go out there and take an experiment from these motherfuckers that tried to kill you.
It doesn't exist because you changed the definition on the NIH website. This is terrible, and you're completely trying to escape the idea that we should do something about trying to prevent a pandemic from leaking from a lab. There's the preponderance of evidence now points towards this coming from the lab, and what you've done is change the definition on your website to try to cover your ass, basically. That's what you've done. You've changed the website to try to have a new definition that doesn't include the risky research that's going on. Until you admit that it's risky, we're not going to get anywhere. You have to admit that this research was risky. The NIH has now rebuked them. Your own agency has rebuked them. But the thing is you're still unwilling to admit that they gained in function when they say they became sicker. They gained in lethality. It's a new virus. That's not gain of function?
According to the definition that is currently operable, Senator, let's make it clear for the people who are listening. The current definition was done over a 2 to 3 year period by outside bodies, including the NSABB, 2 conferences by the National Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine on December 2014, March 2016. We commissioned external risk-benefit assessment, and then on January of 2017, the Office of Science and Technology Policy of the White House issued the current policy.
And coincidentally,
I have not changed
the definition
any
appeared
definition.
On the same day the NIH said that yes, there was a gain of function in Wuhan, the same day the definition appeared, the new definition, to try to define away what's going on in Wuhan. Until you accept it, until you accept responsibility, we're not going to get anywhere close to trying to prevent another lab leak of this dangerous sort of experiment. You won't admit that it's dangerous, and for that lack of judgment, I think it's time that you resign.
Are y'all catching the key words? Experiment. A lot of y'all went out there and took an experiment, okay? For those who didn't get it, you took an experiment, okay?
Thank you, Senator Paul.
Let's hear it again.
Accept responsibility, we're not going to get anywhere close to trying to prevent another lab leak of this dangerous sort of experiment. You won't admit that it's dangerous, and for that lack of judgment, I think it's time that you resign.
Thank you, Senator Paul. And I would like to give the time to Dr. Fauci.
Yeah, well, there were so many things that are egregious misrepresentation here, Madam Chair, that I don't think I'd be able to refute all of them, but just a couple of them for the listeners to hear for. You have said that I am unwilling to take any responsibility for the current pandemic. I have no responsibility for the current pandemic. The current pandemic, okay? Number 2, you said the overwhelming amount of evidence indicates that's a lab leak. I believe most card-carrying viral phylogenists and molecular virologists would disagree with you that is much more likely, even though we leave open all possibilities, it's much more likely that this was a natural occurrence. Third, you say we can
tested 80,000 animals and no animals have been found with COVID.
Senator Paul, the time is for
And third, you made a statement just a moment ago that's completely incorrect, where you say we continue to support research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
You proved it in August of last year.
No.
For mitigating the pandemic. These efforts have now taken a new flavor. Some Republicans now suggest that Dr. Fauci could be personally involved in the origin of the Wuhan virus itself. You heard that right. A Republican senator says that Dr. Fauci authorized and funded risky research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Now, there's nothing new about this theory. It has surfaced several times in the past, but Republicans say that it was not examined and investigated properly due to lack of curiosity from health officials and the quote-unquote pro-China bias of the American media. That's what they say. But how true is this theory?
Let's separate the facts from fiction, and I'll start with the accusation. On Monday, the United States conducted a congressional hearing on the Wuhan virus. All top health officials testified before a Senate committee. The hearing covered a host of things like the ongoing vaccination drive, President Biden's pandemic response, the future of the mask mandate, and the origin of the Wuhan virus. Now, on the last issue, the origin of the Wuhan virus, a war of words broke out between Rand Paul, a Republican senator from Kentucky, and Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is now President Biden's pandemic advisor. The senator, Rand Paul, accused America's federal agencies of funding a gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. What is gain-of-function research? We've covered it on the show before. In simple words, gain-of-function is a sort of experiment or experiments which involve genetically modifying viruses. So you create variants that are more infectious in an effort to better understand them. Dr. Fauci happens to be a leading advocate of this type of research, gain-of-function. He supports it. He was instrumental in reauthorizing it domestically in America after it was suspended due to safety concerns. Let me repeat that. Dr. Fauci authorized this kind of research domestically. He allowed American scientists to create more infectious versions of viruses to study them. Now, the Republican senator said that Dr. Fauci knew that China was conducting such experiments. He pressed Fauci to call out what he called a conspiracy. Watch this.
Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute
Do they fund
of Virology.
Dr. Barrick?
It did not stop there. The hearing went on for hours, and the senator did not budge. He said labs in America were still conducting such experiments, that they were fooling with nature. He lashed out at Dr. Fauci for allowing China to do the same. Watch the second exchange now.
In the U.S., we have 11 labs doing it, and you have allowed it here. We have a committee to do it, but the committee has granted every exemption. You're fooling with Mother Nature here. You're allowing super viruses to be created with a 15% mortality. It's very dangerous. I think it was a huge mistake to share this with China, and it's a huge mistake to allow this to continue in the United States. And we should be very careful to investigate where this virus came from.
This virus through gain-of-function research. Gain-of-function is basically a field of research where dangerous variants and versions of a virus are created. What for? To predict emerging infectious diseases and to figure out ways to tackle them. So China and the US were doing this research together in 2014. America later suspended it, but unofficially, the US kept paying the lab. How? The same year, 2014, America's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, headed by Dr. Anthony Fauci himself, awarded a $3.4 million grant. This was to a New York-based health firm called EcoHealth Alliance. This firm paid the Wuhan lab $598,500 over 5 years to study bat coronaviruses. Do you see the link? Was this American money used for gain-of-function research? The Republicans say it was. They point at an April 2020 email from this health firm's president, Peter Daszak, to Dr. Anthony Fauci. In this email, he thanks Fauci for rejecting the lab leak theory and for stating that scientific evidence supports a natural origin.
You'll support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute.
We do not send money now to Wuhan Virology Institute.
Wow.
If you think this is bizarre, wait till you hear more. In 2014, Barack Obama, the 44th President of the United States, warned that America must be ready because who knows if 5 years from now, a new virus like the Spanish flu pops up. Watch this.
There may and likely will come a time in which we have both an airborne disease
this old house nigga
deadly. So that
this
if and when
house nigga
a new strain of flu like the Spanish flu crops
treason, man. Treason.
5 years from now or a decade from now, we've made the investment.
What will you call it? Coincidence?
Conspiracy.
Farsightedness? Or did America have an inkling of what was cooking in China? I'd leave it to your imagination and get back to the lab. The year is 2018. The Wuhan Virology Laboratory releases another paper saying villagers residing near Yunnan's bat caves carried antibodies to the bat coronavirus. This indicates the possibility of transmission to humans. Then came 2019. In the month of November, 3 employees at this lab fell sick. At least this is what the US intelligence claims. They say 3 workers sought hospital care with symptoms consistent with both COVID-19 and a common seasonal illness. The very next month, in December 2019, a novel coronavirus was detected in 2 patients at a Wuhan hospital. The samples were sent to Dr. Shi Zhengli, China's Batwoman, the director of the Wuhan Virology Lab. Dr. Shi's team found that the virus circulating in Wuhan was a 96.2% match of the virus they had been studying at the lab. And despite knowing all of this, China did not take any proactive measures. Instead, on the 3rd of January, when the cases grew into a cluster, China's National Health Commission ordered all institutions to not publish any information about the sickness. Those who did were silenced. Like Dr. Li Wenliang, an ophthalmologist at the Wuhan Central Hospital. He sent out warnings on a closed WeChat group informing his colleagues about the severity of this virus, but he was censured by the hospital's authorities, summoned by the Public Safety Bureau in Wuhan, and forced to sign a statement of apology for spreading rumors and disrupting public order. What followed was more disinformation, more cover-ups, and more disappearances. A total of 5,100 people were either arrested or labeled sick so that they could be placed in quarantine. What about the rest of the world? Well, some of us did ask questions right from day one. WION reported on how things just did not add up.
Right.
The world. We called it the Wuhan virus so that the world does not forget China's culpability. But the World Health Organization said that we must not characterize or profile the virus because there is no blame in this and all evidence points to a natural origin, exact words spoken. Around the same time, The Lancet, said to be one of the most respected and influential medical journals, published a statement that roundly rejected the lab leak hypothesis. Everyone else followed suit, and this pretty much ended the scientific debate around it. It took the world 18 months, countless mutations, 3.6 million deaths, and 171 million plus cases to give the lab leak hypothesis a second look. 18 months. That's the kind of time that China was given to erase all evidence. In July last year, there were floods in Wuhan. Most of the reports pointed at the floods being man-made. Chinese activists like Jennifer Zheng claimed that this move was undertaken intentionally so that China could purge all evidence. This too was labeled as far-fetched. We need to come to terms with who we are dealing with. China is a country that has been an incubator of new diseases for decades. The Asian flu in 1956, the H5N1 bird flu in 1997, the SARS epidemic in 2002, and now the Wuhan virus. I'm not suggesting that these diseases were purposely spread, but China is known to carry out research on making naturally occurring viruses deadlier to increase their transmissibility and virality. Do you know how many animal samples have been tested to see if they were the source? 80,000 samples from 30 species. They come from farm and wild animals in China. How many of them have tested positive as a source? 0.
None of them.
Yes, the genetic sequence of this virus shows no evidence of manipulation so far, but scientific journals...
They said it came from bats, and y'all just saying that. Y'all know them animals was tested. None of them tested positive for COVID. So this bat bullshit, where'd that come from?
Also say that there are methods which allow scientists to modify viral sequences without leaving a trace And this includes cutting the genome into fragments that can later come together through natural recombination. There are so many scenarios compatible with the lab leak theory that it leaves one wondering, what have we been doing all this while? We dismiss the lab scenario as a conspiracy of the ultra-right. We dismiss citizen journalists reporting on it as amateur sleuths. And we dismiss those raising questions as xenophobic. So let me say this. China may have caused a pandemic it intended to prevent, or it may have created a virus it intended to spread, but it definitely has a role to play, and we need to find out what that role was. Because there's no guarantee that this pandemic will be the last.
And like I said, ladies and gentlemen, if this was a no conspiracy, why did Joe Biden give him a pardon with the Autopen? And they said the Autopen don't count because that's not a signature. You see? See how this shit backfired on him, y'all? Here's the man right here. Here he is right here, y'all. The experimenter. And most of you, and I hate to keep saying this shit, but niggas, man, them black doctors in Philly, man, should be kicked in their ass, man. Facts.
Rand Paul now renewing his push for a criminal investigation into Dr. Anthony Fauci. This after a recent report said that the pardon by the former president, Joe Biden, was granted with an Autopen signature. Madeline Rivera picks up the story from there. What's up, Maddie? Good morning.
Good morning, Bill. Dr. Anthony Fauci was among those who received preemptive pardons from former President Biden on January 19th. But Senator Rand Paul is questioning its legality. He's focusing on this portion of the New York Times report. It states that Biden's former White House Chief of Staff, Jeff Zients, was the one who emailed staff approving the use of the Autopen for the pardons, even though Biden had a conversation with his aides about his clemency decisions earlier that evening. Paul says if the president did not authorize this pardon personally, then the Justice Department has a duty to investigate and prosecute as it would any ordinary citizen. Paul referred Fauci to the DOJ back in 2023, accusing him of lying to Congress about gain-of-function research at a lab in Wuhan, China, where, of course, the COVID-19 virus emerged. Here's part of that testimony from 2021.
I don't think inserting a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function.
That is
you would
not
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
Biden has pushed back, saying he made every clemency decision, even if he did not personally sign the official warrants. The Constitution makes no mention of a personal signature when granting presidential pardons, but if an investigation does go beyond this and provide some evidence that bring the validity of the pardons into question, well, then that could be a new constitutional issue.
Wow.